Do you have 15 minutes, a strong core team, and an idea you dream about pursuing? If you said yes 3 times, you're in for an opportunity of a lifetime, also known as Speedrun. Now, Speedrun is a program for game startups unlike anything you've seen before. First, all teams accepted to the program receive $500,000 of funding from a16z. And a16z is probably one of the best funds in the world. Secondly, your team will be welcomed to San Francisco for 10 weeks to work out of the offices of a16z on your demo. And that demo will be showcased to over 300 investors during the upcoming GDC. And thirdly, you'll get the best of the best mentors to make sure your demo will blow everybody's socks off. And by mentors, I mean the likes of founders of Zynga, Supercell, King, Discord, and so forth. Now, you'll have till the end of September to apply, so act fast. There's an application link below in the description of this podcast, and I suggest that you use code DOF for extra goodwill with your application. And this is not a paid promotion. We're doing this because I think this program is awesome, and I would have applied if this would have been a thing when I was starting my own company. So anybody interested in starting a company or have started their company, this Speedrun is for you. So without further ado, let's talk about what is Speedrun in details and how you can be a part of it. Welcome everybody to Deconstruct Your Fun podcast with, I'll call this a Zynga reunion. We have Josh Liu, partner at a16z Games, and we have Andrew Lee, Zynga OG, entrepreneur in resident at a16z. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So, we're doing a little bit of an emergency podcast. I was talking yesterday to Doug from a16z, and he mentioned that the Speedrun is happening again, and that the sign-up date is close to an end. So I thought that it would be a great thing to kind of get the word out. It is out from the previous event. But before we go into that, what is Speedrun?
So Speedrun is basically our premier accelerator at the intersection of games and technology. So we're deploying $75 million, generally at 500K checks to each individual startup. So if you or a person that you know is founding a company in the world of games and technology, we want to hear from them. It's a very simple application, 10 questions. You can literally do it in less than 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. And then we quickly evaluate those companies and we bring you into a cohort. What it includes is 3 things. The first is it includes coaching from our network of individuals that include, not just investor companies that we've invested in, but luminaries in the gaming field, whether it's Mark Pincus, Stephen Lim, ex-Riot, Valorant, Marcus Jacobs, ex-King, Candy Crush, Alex Larson, Sky Mavis, Axie Infinity, or Emily Greer, for example, who from Congregate. We have these great individuals who provide coaching and mentoring, in addition to our own team, Doug McCracken, Josh Liu, who's on this podcast, and others who have built billion-dollar games. And then we also provide a community. So you're building all at the same time with this group of startups. And then at the very end, you also receive capital. Not only at the very beginning where we give you the 500K check, but at the end, you will debut and basically do a demo day and show off what you built, whether it's a game or a piece of technology that serves the gaming industry, or might have a next-gen consumer startup that has gaming elements to it, in front of I think the last demo day had more than 320 investors attend. So it creates this really great opportunity if you want to go ahead and fundraise as well, post the actual experience. And our whole goal behind this was, I founded a gaming company back in the past. I dearly, dearly wish that something like this existed. And that's why we created it, because we want to be able to go and create a community that fosters the next revolution in gaming startups.
And maybe just quickly to add, like a16z, we invest in lots of game companies, and a16z Games only really wins when the games industry wins. That's very important. And so Speedrun, in many ways, this is maybe not the capitalistic line, but it's our love letter to the games industry. There are so many amazing founders out there that deserve, more coaching, more capital, more access to resources, mentorship, and being able to talk to each other and support each other as founders. And so Speedrun was really born out of this desire to help the games industry. And of course, we're excited to invest in all of these amazing founders and companies too. So, we get something out of it too. But, really our hope is that this is a way for us to help launch the next generation of amazing founders in the games industry.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the videos from the I think inaugural speedrun event. It looked really cool. It was like an awesome party at the end. All these things. I might have had some friends over there that sent me some WhatsApp pictures, so I saw the behind the scenes. Everything was really, really awesome. But let's talk. I mean, there's a lot of unpack here. So let's get the financials out of the way. So you get basically a pre-seed of 500K, and is the term sheet the same for everybody who gets selected for the pre-seed?
So you can think of the funding as we're targeting pre-seed companies. So we want to target really early stage companies that we think are going to benefit actually the most from having an initial injection of cash and all of this sort of like coaching and programming and mentorship community that we put together. And so we are targeting pre-seed companies, but we are not trying to replace the pre-seed round necessarily. Every company is different. And so, some companies require more capital or less capital than others. And so you can think of it as more as we are targeting pre-seed companies. And then as far as all of the term sheets, we have a standard term sheet that we offer. Now, generally speaking, we have one term sheet.
So in order to apply for Speedrun, you have to have already company set up. It can be that let's say you're a team working at Blizzard and you're thinking about it. Can they, send an application going even before leaving the company?
In fact, in our last cohort, we had several companies that actually incorporated in order to be in Speedrun. And even this cohort, we've actually had a couple of companies already incorporate just to be in Speedrun. And so, yeah, we are definitely targeting people across the games industry, people who are, currently at a studio, who have always wanted to make a company. This is the program.
Perfect. So a clear forward jumpstart with a lot of benefits of the community and the coaching and the backing of a16z from the get-go. But let's continue unpacking.
The reality is, like, if you're at a studio today, if you think about doing a startup, it's scary, right? Like, you're like in office, there's snacks and coffee and like, you get to talk to your friends and all the things, maybe remote and you got cool Zoom backgrounds or whatever. But like, people don't know how to start a company. It's like, a very large leap of faith in many cases. And so that's also the part of Speedrun is, we want to make sure that if you're going to make that jump, you're jumping into, the warm embrace of like, people who have done it before, a community that's going to help you along on the journey. And so you don't have to do it alone. So instead of it being, cold and dark and scary, and, startups are hard and we can't solve all those problems, but we can help a lot as you sort of like make that initial.
And the honest to goodness truth is, if you just think of all these great, these great engineers, great developers, designers, producers who, it's probably just as hard for them, and it's a big risk for them to go ahead and try to get past the green light committee and go through the internal politics. And our perspective is very much like, look, like you probably have a very informed opinion about this. It's actually somewhat easier for you to just start your own company. And more importantly is you get to benefit from all of that. You don't get to be encumbered by, sort of the innovator's dilemma that generally happens in a lot of these big companies. And, on your podcast, you talk about this a lot, right? Like, why is it that XYZ released this terrible game, right? And yet they killed this other really great game, right? Like, these are the problems that we think should not exist inside the walls of these big companies, but should exist out in the marketplace so that the whole industry can benefit.
For sure. I mean, I totally agree. I wish I had something like this. So when I was starting a company, what does it take to apply for this? Like, what does a company need to deliver? Is it a first pitch deck of 10 pages of the company and what you're doing, what's the team like, et cetera, or what are the requirements?
It's pretty easy. You go to, I'm going to give you the URL. I'll probably repeat this a couple times throughout the podcast. It's literally speedrun.a16z.com. You click the Let's Go button and you go to a very short, less than 15 question application. It's very simple. In fact, you can do it in less than 15 minutes. But, take some time. Like, we ask about who your co-founders are. We ask about the usual stuff, right? We ask about what have you built in the past? What do you think about building? Are there other ideas that you thought about? What traction, take for example, that you might have? But, and folks might think like, oh, well, that means I have to have built something and it needs to be out there and I need to prove that it works. That's not true. For us, we're much more interested in really you the caliber of your team, the idea, and then potentially what market you're really taking. We're really actually interested to know whether you have some unique insight given your experience, and whether you have you can basically be highly iterative.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as you know, like when you're looking at companies this early, um, not a lot matters more than just the team. And so we tend to spend a lot of time looking at the founders, who they've been able to assemble and get excited about the idea, and evidence that the founders are really passionate and want to execute, really well. At the end of the day, startups are all about shifting and executing, especially games, related startups. And so, any evidence we can see that the founders are really passionate and they have a track record of executing and or have already begun to hack away and execute are really good signs.
What would be the sort of like a dream founding team that you're looking for, and what are the theses that you are investing in?
Look, there are definitely themes that we think are innovative and are, we believe will be interesting things to innovate in for the games industry. As you can probably imagine, UGC and AI and all of these things are things that we're looking at all of the time. But early stage really is about the team, and ideas change and technologies change. When I got started in the games industry, it was like MySpace games, and it was Facebook games and mobile games, instant games and VR games, et cetera, et cetera. The platforms and technologies change all the time, and so it's a lot more about a team's ability to sort of like think about where they want to innovate and then execute on it. And then to answer your question about like what do we look for in teams, I don't know that there's like a unifying theme outside of passion because as you know well, like some of the most amazing games companies were created by games outsiders, right? Like, Mark Pincus was not you know, he did not spend 20 years at a AAA game studio. Walter and team at Scopely were not like games people, games native people. And so we're really looking for founders from all different backgrounds who just want to hack away and do cool things in the games space and have demonstrated an ability and passion for doing so.
And just to give you a concrete sense of some of the companies that we did the previous speedrun batch, right? So we had we had a company called Trask Games, for example, which was building a VR gaming company. And these are young hackers who started when they were very young. They were like 15 years old, built apps on the App Store, kept on doing better and better. Went to hackathons, were given awards by Meta, given awards by Apple, and then afterwards they were working on a game while they were in college, and it turns out it's a really big game. And they're just highly iterative. That's a really young group, for example, and we were excited to have them. But in addition to that, we had also people from like tech, for example, the tech industry, never been in gaming, right? They've built maybe companies in the past. They're working at some great companies, a company called Closing Theory, and they were just like, look, we've never been in games. How do we played them, we understand them, but we don't really understand them. We can build things. Can we build something within the gaming industry? And there's a ton of people who want to do that. And then lastly, I think there's a group of folks who are, I think, great veterans. For example, a company by the name of Torby, for example, previously worked at Astroneer. The whole team had actually worked in Astroneer, and they have a theory on the world of sort of cozy MMOs, which you've talked about a lot in the on the podcast, right? And for them, they were just like, look, we want to build the game that is the natural evolution for some of the experience that we've had in the past. So that was another company. And probably the last one is we're also really interested in diverse founders too, right? Folks who may have worked. We talked about Ilka and Supercell. We had some Supercell alums, Emily Tierney and Anka, created this company called Tiny Comet, and that company is focused on actually educational games built on top of Roblox, right? So you can see it's a really wide gamut. There isn't like we're only looking for PC first-person shooters that do co-ops, right? Like we're actually looking for a wide diversity that in the world of games and technology.
And in terms of the founding team, how important it is that they have worked together for extensive amount of time, or like what is the sweet spot there? Because that's usually something that I personally look for when thinking about the investments. Is like what is the cohesion between them? What is the history?
I mean, it's always helpful. It's I wouldn't say it's a hard requirement, but it's always helpful, right? Like again, startups are hard, and you're gonna do lots of hard things and make lots of hard decisions, and it's important that you have a shared working style and or shared communication style and or especially built trust between the founding team. So it's definitely important, but not necessarily a hard requirement. You can generate all of those things by working together and being in the trenches. It just takes a little extra time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more importantly, is it right? We know this as investors is that even if you're a team that hasn't had a huge amount of working experience together, right? Your traction, your ability to execute, sort of helps de-risk the proposition. So that's the easiest way for us to really be able to know whether something's got legs. But this is so early for us since they're all pre-seed startups. We don't want folks to think that they actually have to have worked 10 years together or have something that's out in the market. We're much more interested in hearing about their unique insights, knowing more about the team, and then seeing some of that experience, but more importantly, whether they've really gone down the idea maze. There's this idea that, and we think that in the world of games, it's very much like that too, right? Like if you're building something and we later ask you, well, what are players doing right now? And you're like, I don't know. I mean, like there's this one game that I really liked and I thought it sucked. If you haven't really gone down and really seen the full landscape as to like whether certain approaches worked and why they didn't work, that just shows us that you haven't really thought nearly as much about it or been as prepared in terms of your approach.
Understood. And so basically, a founder does this 15-minute application. They show that they have traction, whether they're new or whether they're super experienced in the industry, they're passionate about something, they have some unique insights that they want to go after. What's the next step after that 15-minute application?
It can be really, really fast. Typically for finalists, we'll bring you in for a 15-minute interview where you get to meet a couple of the people on the team. You tell us live a little bit more about yourself and the team and what you're building and sort of why you think it's going to work. And we're usually able to make a decision right after that. Oftentimes there are follow-ups because with games, sometimes, if somebody has a build, you want to check out the builds, or, you want to look at the trailer, or if there's traction, you want to show some traction and share the metric. But yeah, the next step is actually just a 15-minute interview. And then, in many cases, you're either in, you're out.
We're speedrunning the speedrun, the whole investing process. We speedrun that one too.
That makes sense. And so these interviews will be happening during GDC. Am I correct? Or is that the demo day?
Yeah, we should tell you the timing. Sorry. So the application deadline is within, depending on when this podcast drops, it occurs on September 30th. And we might take some late applications because obviously we love the people at Deconstruct. They're fun, just hearing from them. But again, it's basically within a week. And what happens is those interviews will happen. We will select the class almost immediately within probably a month. And then the actual speedrun program begins in January. And then it lasts for 10 weeks and ends at GDC. That's when you're going to have your demo day. And our perspective was for everyone to basically show off their games at demo day, we are able to go ahead and grab the largest concentration of both investors as well as people within our network to see some of the amazing stuff that comes out of speedrun and put folks with their best foot forward to continue building their great companies.
Okay, that makes total sense. And you said you're going to bring people for 15-minute onsite. We got a lot of listeners in Turkey, Israel, a lot of European countries. Are you going to bring them also inside, or are they going to do a Zoom interview?
We're doing Zoom interviews.
Good. All right.
Yeah. We're doing.
We're not that backwards. No, we're not.
No, I was thinking that they get to travel to LA, I think, where you guys are. So no, the interviews are happening on the Zoom, but then the actual demo day makes sense that they go back and build something and they come in and then they get to present not only to their peers, not only to a16z, but I assume to about 100 other investors or more.
Yeah, hopefully a lot more than that. Yeah, hopefully a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more. Okay. We have to beat our previous number of 300-ish, right? And one important thing to keep in mind is the actual program itself is located in San Francisco. And that the reason behind that is a lot of our team is there. And our perspective is we want to, if people can relocate to San Francisco, that's great. Parts of it are required to be in because you're actually going to be in these intimate areas where you're going to be speaking with founders of billion-dollar companies, and we want to make it as for that to be as real as possible because nothing really beats sort of IRL, despite all the games that we all play. It feels like but that doesn't, however, mean that we don't want companies to apply from all across the world. We know that great companies out there exist. But the most important thing is that they're willing to go ahead and come to San Francisco and stay for that 10-week period and also do their demo day at GDC.
Yeah, and just to add, in our last cohort, we had a company from India who attended. We had several European companies, and even in this cohort that's shaping up companies all around the world who are going to be on site just for the program, and for
That's fantastic. And you have some kind of a space for the people who are coming in. How does it work in practice?
We are actually offering our SF office. So a16z's SF office is going to be a workspace for the duration of the program. Kickoff's going to be there. We're going to have sort of like weekly programming there. For demo day, we're like reserving, our office, huge swaths of our office for, our companies to take meetings in. And so we're actually offering a lot of that space.
But more than likely, if you're really doing a startup, you're probably going to just wake up, go to your computer and start working from your apartment. And then more than likely, you'll be like, oh, hey, cool. a16z has that thing. I got to go in and I'm going to go. And what we care a ton about is we just know startup founders are really busy. So we want to, basically make it so that our program doesn't get in the way of them building their company. We're there to go and supplement and help them as much as possible to accelerate everything.
So it's a little bit like a Y Combinator, right? But more focused.
Yeah, think of it like a Y Combinator for games and technology, right? But it's different in that I think that there's never been anything that's been this verticalized specifically on the world of consumer content on games, right? And I think even games themselves, like games really have never had anything like this, because most of the time you have like game jams, like there's a wide, like basically a huge valley when you make the game jam and maybe like some indie game awards and maybe like a big game launch. There's all these giant valleys where it's like people don't just like just disappear. Everyone's kind of working really hard and they kind of wish they had a community to be able to do it with each other.
Makes all the sense. A true accelerator in many ways. Like, couple of more questions. How did you get all these coaches to help the founders? I was looking through the site and there's literally the who's who. I mean, you mentioned a couple of people and mentioning them again, probably who I wrote, like Mark Pincus, founder of Zynga. You got Ilka Bonner, the founder of Supercell. You got Eros Rosmini, founder of Discord. You got Ricardo Zacconi, founder of Cade, and then on and on and on. So my question is like, maybe not how did you get them, but more like how involved are they in the coaching and going through the previous course? As a founder, how much interaction can I expect? Like, can I have a powwow session with Mark Pincus while I'm in San Francisco? Like, how does it work?
Well, we're putting together the list of speakers for this next cohort, and we think it's going to be many of the speakers from last quarter are going to come in, and we're going to expand it as well. Many of these speakers are sort of involved with the program for a couple of reasons. One, because they're just friends of the firm, and we've called in a lot of favors to have these people involved in helping these founders. Two, many of these folks are either former executives or founders themselves. Many of them are founders, and they remember what it was like, coming up. And a16z has done the hard work of assessing through many applications to find some of the most promising up and coming founders. And so this is a way for those speakers and mentors to get close to potentially the next generation of amazing founders. So that's another. And then the third is these founders are often investing in the community as well, and so they get to meet the next wave of companies, potentially get involved at very early stages, help where they think they can be the most helpful. And then the last thing I'd say is all of these mentors are extraordinarily successful and extraordinarily busy, and so it also is up to our founders to find the right people to match with and then build a relationship. Our job as a16z Games is to sort of bring the community together. You can't force the community together. You can only bring everybody together, and that's where the amazing collisions been. And so there's like individual sort of matchmaking relationships built along the way.
And the interesting thing about it is of the founders as well as speakers that we have, right? Some people might think, oh, well, it's only just sort of like founders who've made billion-dollar companies. What if I wanted to go and get specific advice on fundraising, for example, right? Well, it turns out like Ben Feder, who's a board member of Epic, right, and has seen Fortnite grow quite a bit and actually invests actively himself, has a talk where he specifically talks about how to fundraise, right? And then in addition to that, in addition to hearing from founders as well as specific advice from each of the speakers, we actually have our team, right, from the a16z Games team, and that includes individuals like Doug McCracken, who you've gotten close with, who is former Supercell, previously over at Riot, knows a ton about marketing. And I'll tell you that from the previous class, the top rated module, we also have content that we provide, right? Not just the coaching, but we have individual modules on how you build a company. the top rated module was actually over go-to-market, right? Which is like, and we call it the attention game, because our perspective is this whole thing is like the startup game with individual sort of like micro quests in between. And one of the hardest ones is actually the attention game. So you get Doug McCracken, who previously worked at Supercell. You have on our team, Lester Chen, who previously was head of creators over at YouTube. And you also had Justin Payne, who previously worked at Twitch and also was previously over at Minecraft. And both of them talked about specific attacks on how you think about working with creators, for example, if you're going to start working with them, or what's the right way to think about how you build audience or brand, or what's the best way to work with publishers? Like, does it matter if you get attention beforehand to work with publishers? And as we all know, there's this like dance that occurs between all three of those. And the good thing about it is we ourselves are our own startup, right? We make these modules and then we hear back from our founders and then they say, hey, I like this. I did not like this. This was really useful. This was not useful. I like this speaker. I didn't like this speaker as much. We try to make it so that it's as useful as possible each individual cohort every single time. So every single class that we do, we try to basically make it, have it improve and try to make it better and better.
Fantastic. All right. So let me just run through everything again and let's see if I understood everything correctly. So first of all, let's start with the date. Till end of this month, and we're currently in September. You have the time to apply. You might come in a day late. Just use the code DOF. If you're a really good team, you might still get in.
There's a referral there. So the honest good truth, if DOF gets a referral, you also get a custom a16z mechanical keyboard.
Oh, wow. So anybody listening to this, by the way, use code DOF. like we can't have enough of those mechanical keyboards to destroy every podcast episode that we record. But no, that would be really cool. I would just like to know how many listen, how many get applied and funded. But yeah, use code DOF by the end of this month. It takes you 50 minutes to apply minimum, but you'll probably end up spending 45 minutes because you're a very thorough future founder that wants to get their idea across. You're going to spend probably a few days talking to people you want to work with. Now is the time you can take the leap of faith. Then that application goes to the fine ladies and gentlemen at a16z Games Fund. They will take a read. They will have a 15-minute call with you, no matter where in the world you are. And after that, then possibly a couple of follow-ups, maybe trying demo, kind of seeing a little bit more what you're up to, how far you've gone. You'll get the verdict. And that verdict, of course, because you listen to this podcast, you're very well versed. So that verdict will be most likely yes. And that will give you the $500,000 funding. And that gives you also the ticket to the fine USA and the rowdy city of San Francisco, where you're located for 10 weeks, working day and night on your demo that you're going to present at GDC in front of over 300 investors from the best of the best funds from around the world. But what's going to help you is first of all, you're quite isolated, most likely. There's no hustle and bustle of where you live because now you're 10 weeks in San Francisco. You can't go outside because it's kind of scary, but that's a different story. Just kidding. And then you're going to be able to connect to some of the best founders in gaming and tech that you can find. The biggest names. And those will be valuable connections. They will tell you about their stories and they will give you they'll give you the direction that you won't get anywhere else. But you also get the help from a16z crew that has seen a lot of companies throughout the time, and they want you to succeed. And you have what's unique about a16z, as I've been interacting with Jordan, with Doug, with others, is like you have a lot of true specialists, whether the former marketing lead of Supercell, whether it's former lead from YouTube creators, whether it's former lead of hiring or recruitment at Riot. So there's a lot of professionals that you will get a lot of information from and help from. But nevertheless, 95% of your time will be on that demo because it's going to be a tough crowd you're going to be presenting. And then in GDC, you'll be in front of everybody who actually writes the checks at once. And that's when you get your seed round and you're off accelerating towards unicorn status. Did I get it right?
That's right. The one thing that I would add is your journey with us does not end at demo day. You will be part of an amazing alumni group. You will be in our network. We continue to help our companies. So once you're in the family, you're in the
family. And just to make sure that folks think oh, well, how does it truly benefit me? Let me give you some real numbers, which is that out of the last demo day of all the companies that demoed, 80% of them raised follow-on financing, right? They all were able to go ahead and raise follow-on financing. That we were actually surprised ourselves. We were honestly actually surprised ourselves. But it just goes to tell you that the gaming industry has been waiting for something like this, right? So many people want to build things at the intersection of games and technology, whether it's new things at the forefronts, all the different forefronts, whether it's, new platforms, AI, whether if you take, for example, you're just one person who's like absolutely astounded by VR, AR, and Apple Vision Pro, like we want to hear from you. And the truth is that there's been no other vehicle like this outside of Speedrun. And it just goes to show that actually, if we do this right, we can really actually create a revolution in the world of gaming. And I think that's something that the DOF has been trying to do that for a long while. All the complaints every single episode, right? This is your vehicle. If you've been hearing the complaints and you're like, I want to do something, I need to do something, this is your ability to do it. And we got $75 million to go and help, put money where that mouth is.
No, I don't know if we're complaining that much. We're just raising issues.
Concerns, legitimate concerns.
There's two ways you can start a company. There's the way where you don't do this the pre-seed, but you kind of bootstrap for a long way, get further along, raise a seed round. The slow way, it's a tough way. Nothing wrong with that. What I like about this program is the amount of support you're getting just through the connections, and you guys are a huge fund in terms of both sides and influence, and the speakers that you have and the mentors that you have kind of speak for it. So Andrew, I think this was your idea initially, the speedrun. I think it's a really cool idea, and excited to see how this evolves. And I hope that there's going to be a lot of applications from around the world, and you'll see a very diverse group targeting very different segments of the games industry.
I mean, since we're talking about a Zynga reunion, this was sort of like the dream that we could make games quickly. Remember, guys? Yeah. We could have have shared technology. We'd have innovation happen all the time. And I think the thing is that dream is still trying to be had. I mean, Josh spent all this time at Blizzard building, working on billion-dollar games. And even then, I mean, I'm sure, Josh, you can talk about the experience. I mean, you sort of wish that there was some process like this too.
Yeah, for sure. We just have to make sure there will be no product reviews. I can promise no product reviews as part of Speedrun.
Yeah, only doing and only looking at the software and only moving forward. Thank you, guys. This is a really cool thing. I'm very happy that we're able to get the word out as soon as possible and make sure that you get maximum applications for not only this one, but also for the future one, because most likely some people are listening, they don't quite have the idea, or maybe they're not sure about the team, or maybe one person in the team is not ready right now. I assume that these will be happening at rather frequent intervals, and there will be the next speed run that you'll be able to apply. So even if you don't apply now, get ready for the next one, right?
Yeah, we will be running it back
right.
soon. Yeah, so stay tuned. Thanks for having us on such short notice. This has been really
awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and send you your DOF a16z games mechanical keyboard. If you're listening out there, the man needs a keyboard.
Yeah, that's 100% true. So DOF code and apply next week, and just get ready. This is a cool thing. I wish this would have been there when I started my company. So on that note, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.